Rope Fire Water takes its name from the cornerstone of the exhibition, Howardena Pindell's newest video work, her first in 25 years. In addition to this video that the Shed commissioned, there are 5 new paintings that the artist has done. We also have historical works from the 1970s, as well as works from the late 2000s. This show is how we've reopened our space after being closed for many months, and we're really thrilled to reopen with a show that is incredibly timely and is an incredibly beautiful exhibition. On this wall, you'll see 3 paintings from the 1970s. She has used paper cutouts in her practice for decades, and this is one of the early examples of how she employs that technique. Canals Underground Railroad is actually a work that's never been on view. It situates New York City and New York State as a space where slavery was happening. One thing I like to note about this painting is the addition of these shackles that the artist actually procured from a plantation in Georgia, because it is a child-sized shackle. And that was something that both Howardena and I discussed as something that's really a traumatic thing to encounter. Carnival Rio Samba School is meant to be a breath and a moment of pause before the viewer enters into the screening rooms. I thought it was necessary for there to be a respite for the viewer, much like the artist has a respite in her studio through the abstract practice. Rope Fire Water I consider to be a bookend to the artist's seminal work, Free White and 21. Free White and 21 was a more anecdotal look at racism and white supremacy in this country, whereas Rope Fire Water uses historical data, first-person narratives, and archival imagery to talk about the history of this country. It was important for me to have the film in an enclosed space so that viewers could engage with the paintings and not be directly confronted with the film at all times. A lot of the images are difficult to encounter, and a lot of the facts and information that Howardena gives is unsettling. It is an incisive look at American history. This painting, For Little Girls, is directly related to the themes that are explored in Rope Fire Water. The artist really wanted to speak to the ways that there were a lot of domestic terrorism that happened post-Reconstruction and a lot of destruction of both upwardly mobile Black communities and places of worship. At the base of the painting are various found objects that the artist torched and singed to reference the objects that would have been left behind. Columbus is a work that is actually an expansion of what Howardena usually considers in her more thematic and issues-based paintings. With this work, Howardena is actually expanding her thoughts to include indigenous populations. She's exploring the practices that Columbus inflicted on indigenous populations in Hispaniola when he arrived, and she also ties it into ancient Egyptian practices, as well as the practices in what is now the Democratic Republic of Congo under King Leopold II. Water is a large part of this exhibition, from the exploration of it in the film Rope Fire Water to the abstract practice. This wall here features several works that engage with the theme of water. The artist is thinking through her relationship to it and larger issues of climate change. Plankton Layers 1 and 2, which were commissioned specifically for the Shed, explores plankton as both a producer of oxygen and as an aesthetic consideration. Something that she has mentioned to me often is the way that she uses these as a direct difference from the more thematic and issues-based work. This work is called Coast Snow Day. I think one of the reasons that this work might be one of Howardena's favorite in the show is just how textured and layered it is. And for her, the practice of punching out each hole punch and applying them methodically to the canvas is something that is incredibly relaxing, and it allows her to focus on something singularly rather than having to be completely clued into the reality that we're facing right now. And I think this is a mode of escape for her, this practice. One of the things that I find most exciting about working with Howardena Pindell is how she is always pushing her practice and growing and stretching beyond what she has produced in the past.